some folks online. We're just connecting everything up, getting got the tick. Okay. So we'll open the meeting again and we'll go straight to item 2.3, which is Chief Executive Review Committee membership. I'd like to move this from the chair, please. Minutes for confirmation. I'm sorry, the bit that we pushed back from this morning. So item 1.6, let's do that. Minutes for confirmation, page 3. And these are council meetings from 6th of August and 15th of August minutes and hearing minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, for those? Councillor Connell, Councillor Rodley, all those in favour? Thank you. That's passed. Thank you, Jenna. And to item 2.3, which is a confirmation of Councillor Gary Percival as a member of the Chief Executive Review Committee. I'll move this. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Grant. Any discussion? All those in favour? Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Gary Percival. Thank you for your contribution. Much appreciated. Right. Item 2.4, elected members' expenses and allowances policy. Page 64, please. Donna, thank you. I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of a summary of the key points and the adjustments that line us up between the actual allowances and the policy. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, through the chair. Okay, so we've recently updated our sensitive expenditure policy, which raised the level of expense allowance basically for meals, mostly for meals, because we were finding that in some trips, especially to Wellington, the allowances that we had just weren't meeting the mark. So we've raised those, and in doing so, the elected members' expenses and allowances policy needs also to align to those. So that's why we did a bit of a review of it, which was kind of out of cycle because we normally review this just after an election, but we can review it, any other time as well if need be, if things change. So that's kind of what instigated the review. So the main proposed changes are the increase in the meal allowances, as explained. There was also a clause in the policy that set a different meal allowance for Thames, which we thought was a bit odd. So one of the proposals to the changes is to remove that clause. We just wanted also to put more clarification in the policy around the approval of tenants at conference, both within New Zealand and overseas, so that it's just really clear for members what the process was around that. We wanted to put some further clarification in around the definition on council business. We thought this was really important because I think that was a little bit ambiguous. We wanted to put more clarification around there, mainly so that it was really clear when elected members are claiming expenses, what actually council business means. There's a number of reasons for that, but it's also to protect elected members from the public scrutiny of their expenses as well. So we just wanted to make sure that that was quite clear. We put some more clarification in the definition of reasonable because, I mean, that's a pretty ambiguous word that could mean anything. And we also put the addition of the chair of the Risk Insurance Committee to be delegated to hear any exceptions or disputes, and made some other minor editorial changes. In doing this review, I did look at a number of other councils' policies as well to make sure that they aligned and that we had everything covered in there that we needed to. So I have done quite an extensive review. one of the other things that 7.3 of the policy, and this was already in the policy, we haven't changed this at all. There is a requirement that elected members' expense claims, receipt of personal gifts are published on council's website. I couldn't see where we've actually ever done that. So I've looked into that a little bit more, and it's taken a long time to get some clarification around it, because in the Remuneration Authority, it says that council approved allowances for local government members must be included in the council members' expenses and reimbursement policy and published on its website. So obviously previous council officers taken that, who developed this policy, some years ago, took that to meaning that we had to publish the expenses as well. We've looked at a number of other council websites, and we've found quite a few that do publish it. But just an hour ago, I've had some confirmation back from the Remuneration Authority saying that what it meant by that clause, that only the elected members' expenses and reimbursement policy needs to be published on the website. So, but then in saying that, what they've said, that it's for transparency purpose, that doesn't negate us being able to do that if that's what is in our policy, and that's a policy condition that we have. There's nothing to stop us doing that. So that's kind of all the information that I can give you around that one. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Donna. Are you on 7.3? Are you looking for a decision or a guide from this council as to whether you should be publishing the full details of the expenses or just the policy?
So when this report was written, because we had never published them before, and I identified it in the report, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the councillors that it is in our current policy. So we are planning, if it remains in this policy, we are planning to publish the expenses so that we are keeping it in line with our policy. However, if council want to make a different decision and they want to change that policy or remove that, we can look at that too.
Okay. So there you go, councillors, that's on the table. We'll open this for discussion and questions. Terry, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
It's an order.
There is an order. Oh, and I'm looking out this eye. So we've got Councillor Morrissey, and I always miss you. I must be semi-blind in that eye. So Councillor Morrissey, then Councillor Sinclair, then Councillor Walker. Thank you.
Yeah, right. I was just reminded when I wanted to speak about the etiquette lesson we got from Donna the other day. Do not turn your microphone on. Hold your hand up, and Artie will take care of you. So I got it, and I'm happy with that system. Hey, listen, just a couple of points in here that I do want to talk about, and that is, gosh, I put brackets around it, and then I moved my page. Yeah. Gosh, oh, here it is.
Page
it's under council business, page 69 of the agenda, and it's just where if we attend, as I did, for example, just last week, attend a meeting over in Kurtuna with ratepayers, which was pretty last minute, and I did claim the mileage because I think it was about 60 odd Ks round trip there. If this policy goes out as it is, then I would have to ring the mayor or the deputy mayor or whatever to get authority for that trip. And I just think that's a bit cumbersome and slow. I'd be happy to have it in there if it was actually, the policy was, if it was being abused and people were claiming mileage to just, for left, right and centre. But I think that's obviously council business. That's obviously a small hurdle that you're going to have to jump through every time and try and get pre-approval on. And I just am not happy with that being there unless it's being abused, and I'm not aware of it being abused. That's my first point, so I'll have others.
Can I just respond to that and just say that I support that position? I have absolute and total faith at a personal level in my councillors' ability to make their own decisions about what is appropriate and the integrity, and I really, frankly, don't want to be I've got enough to do. I don't want to be bothered with individual phone calls. Please, can I go to this ratepayer meeting on Sunday? That's my position. I think you're adult enough to make your own decisions without including me. So thank
Thank
you
you for that,
Councillor
Mr.
Morrissey.
Mayor, and I'm sure if it is abused, then that will be addressed at the appropriate time.
Donna, please.
So through the chair, just to clarify, that's not the reason that that I'm suggesting that we have that in there. So when the majority of other councils' policies all have somebody in there approving that, and then the reason why it's actually to protect the elected members from, I guess, from the perception that they might be going to a meeting for electioneering purposes, for example, or other reasons that could be deemed not to be council business for whatever reason, because that's a perception thing, and having somebody approving going to that meeting straight away negates any ambiguity, I guess, around that. So that was the only reason why, and also because that was in the other a lot of other councils have that in their policy.
Okay.
It wasn't around.
I totally take on board.
It wasn't for because about abusing it or thinking that you guys weren't able to make those decisions.
Thank you, Donna, and I do take that on board that that was not the reasons, but the regardless, that will actually be what occurs. We will be required to seek pre-approval, so I'd just like not to have to do that. And if it becomes a problem later on, and in actual fact, these expenses get signed off by Len at the end of every month. So if he sees inappropriate claiming, I'm sure it will be addressed with the councillor.
Thank you. That responsibility has been delegated to the deputy mayor for some time now.
Buy you an ice cream later on, Terry, if you're approving these days. So I just think that can come out. The other point that I'd like to make is 9.3. Some of us around this table are great report writers. I put this in the same category as members' reports, which I actually usually found tedious and hard to listen to and not worth too much. So if after attending a conference, currently it says must provide a synopsis of the conference to the council. And some of us around here are great report writers and do write lovely letters and what have you. Some of us don't. I'd like to have the word may put in there. I see those conferences as very much about growing the councillor that attends, not about coming back here and boring the rest of you with what I actually learned, unless it's something truly significant, and then I may. But I want to have the option. I'd like to see must come out and may go in.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. So we'll carry on to hear other thoughts, but if you've got any thoughts specifically on what John has said, I'm interested to hear it. So Councillor Sinclair, please.
Hi, Donna. I have three questions. One is a statement, and I highly approve of the publishing of expenses. I think there's a lot of safety and transparency, and I too have had a look at a number of other councils and their websites and had a look at the expenses, and I think it's a really excellent way of communicating the work that we do. So I would highly like 2 ticks to keep that in. There you go. There they are. Secondly, presumably this policy also applies to every other elected member apart from the ones sitting on this table, and so it's really just flagging that the community board would need to be notified of these changes if they haven't been already. And then the third one is really about the council business and the definition of conferences versus training courses. And I know that we've spoken about this before, and Delhi has raised a couple of times what is our budget for training courses versus our budget for conferences. I would absolutely love to see 9.3 of the policy remain, that we must report back, because again, there's a lot of strength and transparency. And if I'm lucky enough to go and represent council on something, I feel like it's a duty to then report back on what I found, because otherwise it's a junket, really. But the thing I'm really seeking clarity about here is the difference between conferences and training courses. And do we need to have some sort of definition about which one is which?
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. I'm just making a couple of notes of things that we need to come back to and make decisions on. So Terry, please.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First of all, around the gifts, I sort of was thinking about the other day about the registering on the website, etc. So apart from the Chinese visit recently, we got a couple of gifts in. What other gifts do we get? Do we get a lot of them? I'm just trying to get my head around what gifts we receive.
I don't know. The gifts will be given to the elected members, so that would be.
Do we get?
You could ask your colleagues.
Yep. So at Christmas time, you'll see a bottle of wine come in, or maybe a couple of bottles, or that kind of stuff that arrives for senior managers, mayor, or potentially the deputy mayor. So it's common that stuff just turns up, and it's just a way of, you don't want to turn it back to them, but you want to just, you kind of have to accept it, but then be transparent about what's come in.
Right. So we get the odd one from around
Yeah,
Christmas.
we definitely get the odd one
Okay.
come in. We do. Is it up on the website currently?
Oh, sorry, we do from a staff perspective. I thought Councillor Walker was talking about give their own gifts.
Thank you. Just a bit. Can't talk about it.
I guess if you receive anything in your role as councillor, and the threshold is, what's the threshold, $50 or something?
I
like that?
think it's 50.
Yeah.
Of something that's of greater value than $50, which could easily be, 2 bottles of wine or something like that. It just goes on the on the gift register
Okay.
for transparency.
That's good. Thank you. It clarifies that. The next question is
Sorry,
around.
Terry, just before you do, so if in doubt, where should councillors ask the questions directly to you, Donna?
Yes, if they come to me, and I think from a reporting purposes, we would only report those that were on the gift register.
Okay.
So it's under that $50 threshold.
Thank you. So is that helpful, councillors? If you're not sure,
Yeah.
straight to Donna. Thank you. Sorry, John, we'll come to you. Can
I just
let
had one
Terry
more
carry
question,
on?
and it was around what John raised, and he's got a good point about travelling to ratepayers meetings. But I've just written down here, there's 9 meetings that I go to outside the territory, so I'm just trying to get a balance about, and I've never claimed for any of these, but I do think they are big council business. But how do we manage this in a way are we just looking for people to be respectful and understanding, or?
I think you have flagged that, and we are a unique district. We've got a lot of community groups, a lot of ratepayers groups, and these things are happening all the time. So for us to, I don't really want to be burdened with that, but we've also got to be responsible in terms of how we manage this. So
Self-management.
Robin, did you want to respond directly to that?
Yeah, I did, because I just had a thought about things that the Chief Executive Committee has been thinking about in terms of where relationships lie. And much as it's great that there is no claiming for those, and I absolutely applaud you, and there's lots of things that I don't claim for, I am now worried that those have slipped under the radar in terms of where our relationships lie. And so when we're looking at the workload of incoming councillors, and we're looking at the workload of what we're expecting our senior leadership and our chief executive to step up to, and where relationships are important and held, those are now absolutely lost to the organisation. So we don't know what you're attending, and we don't know what you're attending, we don't know what I'm attending. And so I wonder if maybe we should be retaining that permission, if you like, or that approval, so that we have visibility of, as an organisation, about what it is that we do.
We can show those. We normally get an invite by email from the group asking us to come along, and they could show those emails quite clearly that we have an invite there. And we have to respond yes or no normally.
Yes. And again, I don't really want my inbox flooded with every councillor invitation to every community group. But I think you raise a really good point, Robin. Is there a need for some kind of very, very brief councillor reporting back on, groups engaged with and meetings attended? So
flick an email through saying it's going to happen, and that would be good.
So I'm going to suggest that we don't try and tackle the detail of this today. We'll be here all day. I'm going to come to John and then to you, Rekha, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Look, I was just going to say, 2 things. One that I'll now add to what I was going to say, which is I think that to do your job effectively, you are always engaging with various groups, and you are hearing things that are happening that you want to also participate in from various times. And, I'm really conscious about that. So I saw Adrian on the way through, and I said to him that, there are things that I wouldn't mind catching up with you about. So we've organised to have a catch up next time I'm coming through, and to formalise that by putting it out into notes that you'd be sending around, I think, surpasses to me the logic of, or the common sense of just doing what you need to do. And if others should be involved in those discussions, then it should be your decision, to send that out to others. So that would be my tuppence worth on that. And I think the more we think about others and the more that we share some of these things, the better the system works. In regard to expenses in the corporate world, the policy that is suggested here is probably light compared to what you would find in most real corporate environments. The gift registers. I have been in situations where a bottle of wine has had to be returned to people, and that is not an uncommon thing in a corporate world. Because of nothing other than the perception of receiving a gift from someone who is providing a service. And so I think the need for transparency is absolute, and that everything and a $50 limit is quite high from my world and the experience that I've previously had. So it hardly covers a couple of beers, really, if you think about it.
Thanks, John. Bailey, please.
Just in response to John, I absolutely agree. And with staff, our policies are quite a bit more tighter than this. And particularly the one around gifts, particularly putting it on the on the gift register is to manage risk, because a company gives you something, we're entering a procurement process with them, for example, and I've seen lots of examples where you're heading towards a tender and suddenly companies start trying to send you tickets to rugby matches, and thankfully I don't like rugby and turn them down, but those are the sorts of things that we've got to really watch out for. So for the gifts register is absolutely about protecting, and from a staff perspective, the provisions in here that Donna is suggesting is twofold. It's about ensuring something is black or white. It's either in or it's out, and it doesn't mean that one of our admin staff has to make a judgment about whether councillor so-and-so should be doing that or not. But it's also for the councillor's protection that they're not being claiming stuff that potentially is grey, and therefore there's a perception that evolves, and it's particularly important between now and the election, obviously. And so that's the reason why that's been suggested. We will do whatever you want us to do, but we will ask you to make it black and white in one way or another.
Thanks, Aileen. And look, I think one of the things that might be helpful, Donna, and if I can make a suggestion based on talking to councillors, it might be helpful to have a separate list of conferences and events that councillors are invited to and expected to go to, with the details of those specified, not necessarily in the policy, but linked through. And an example of that would be LGNZ Zone 2, which normally is a day trip to Karapiro and back. But sometimes when that happens in a place like Whakatane and involves potentially councillors staying overnight or community board members, we get into a grey area. Are we covered under expenses? How do we cover that? So that's part of the discussion that's come up. Do we need to have a specific list? Waikato Housing Initiative, LGNZ, Wellington, LGNZ Zone 2, things like that. So again, without wanting to get into the detail too much today, I'd like to throw that out there and ask councillors to have a think about that, and maybe a list could be populated which takes away, and as Aileen says, black and white takes away some of that grey, and lets us make really informed decisions about what we're going to and what we're not.
I've got one,
Gary,
one
please.
thing, because we've got on the 12th of September the review meeting in Whangamata, and I managed to get them to agree. Kamina, they normally don't take more than 6 people. They're prepared to do 12, and they want Mel's dealing with them. But it seems that the $70 would cover the food aspect if we were up it. It's all I'm saying is it's a very, very nice restaurant, and we're lucky because I know the guy. He said, well, okay, well, we've got to be there at 5:45. They'll alter the restaurant for us. And I'm just don't want to not have that because we can't do, really need $70 per head for that.
So if this resolution is passed today, then that takes it to $70 immediately. Have I got that right? So thank you. So that's, I
That
think
was my only
that's
concern
covered.
because I did lean on him a bit to change his restaurant around.
Yeah, thank you. Rebecca, I'm sorry about that. We got out of order and I apologize for that.
Okay, and you mentioned we're not going to sort of solve this today. I was just reflecting on some of the comments that were made earlier. And I know in the previous term when we had sort of all of those community groups wanting to catch up with elected members and staff over the summer period, previous term we would make a calendar. So that calendar was there and populated with, who was going to attend and all of the dates. And we also used to have, and I keep banging on about members' reports where we would come back and share where we had been, who we'd seen, what their concerns were, some of the positive things that had happened in the community. So there's two things that have happened in the past that don't happen anymore, but help collect sort of the information and what people have been up to. So I just wanted to raise that.
Thank you. Thank you. Martin, thank you.
Donna, so I just wanted to check. So the council sensitive expenditure policy, that's already been revised because that was done in June this year. So
Yeah, that's correct.
we are being asked today to adopt the elected members' expenses policy, aren't we? It's just people have said, oh, we don't need to decide the detail and stuff, but we are being asked today to make that change.
Yes, if today we're asking for you to adopt the changes because this policy is a governance policy. The sensitive expenditure policy is a management policy. So that was adopted by the leadership team.
Okay. And if I may just make a second point, I would be in favour of the expenses being put on the website because potentially I guess it just means that we can maybe avoid legoimas in that regard because the media could just go straight there and look, we could just direct them straight there. So it may in fact save us the money. I would just be very aware that there should be some notes in there because obviously elected members from the Eastern Seaboard are going to have significantly higher expenses than us here. And I would just really hate a media story to go out saying, hey, look, Councillor Walker claimed 5,000 in travel expenses and, Mr. Rodley did 100 or something. I think there really needs to be that explanation as to why, but I don't know how you can do that and I haven't looked at other councils and seen how they've done them.
So just to address your earlier comment about whether we need to get down into the detail, perhaps today we can ask Donna to include some specific things that have been raised, which we know come up all the time, LGNZ conference, LGNZ Zone 2, Waikato Housing Initiative. And then at any stage in the future, we can, if other things need to be added, because we don't want to be holding up things today while we populate a list. Other things can be added at any future stage very easily with a procedural motion through council.
So through the chair, I understand what you're saying about having a list, but that is more procedural, and I'd be reluctant to actually have that as part of this policy. I would see that as separate to this policy, but something that's provides guidance and is informative, and then it can be added to as we go through. Otherwise, things change. Like,
Sure.
Committees can come and go. Things can change even over a term, and we wouldn't be wanting to have to keep coming back and readopting a policy.
So you're saying that we have delegated authority of the mayor, the deputy mayor, or the chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee, and that covers us. And so those delegated people can make those decisions on individual events, and that covers us?
Yes, so today, so through the chair, if council agree to that change for the definition of council business, that will stand, but you can also decline to make that change to the policy.
We could also have this approved and then go away and do an operational list with the agreement of those three parties.
That would solve the problem. Yep. Okay.
I'm happy to move as per the staff recommendation that we adopt.
So thank you, Councillor Grant. Before you do that, I want to circle back to address Councillor Morrissey's request that the reporting back, the change in that one word from must, and I'm going to go to page 73, item 9.3. Councillor Morrissey specifically requested that word must be replaced with the word may. And it's something that I would support, that gives councillors the discretion as to whether they come back and report back to council or a workshop or some other format with a summary or a synopsis of the event that they've attended. I'm not thrilled about imposing this as a requirement on councillors, because I think there's enough to do at the moment and it adds to the paperwork. Robin.
I vehemently oppose that and will second John Grant's motion, which is now on the floor.
Councillor Morrissey.
I would like to propose an amendment to that motion. I can. Judgment.
All right. So
yeah, if I get a seconder, I'm in boots and all. So the motion is on the floor. I want to propose an amendment to that motion, but I'll need a seconder to do so. My intentions on getting the amendment and will be take out the word must and replace it with may. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Gottlieb second. So we'll vote on the amendment, changing from.
Yes.
I think the amendment. I'll get some councillor. So the amendment comes first. Okay. So we will vote on the amendment proposed by Councillor Morrissey, seconded by Councillor Gottlieb. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Those against? That is carried. Thank you. All right. Now we'll go to the substantive motion.
Before we deal with the substantive motion, can I just be clear what it is we're voting on?
Mm-hmm.
Did we actually have removed from the text the requirement to get authority from the mayor, the deputy mayor, or the? We didn't. So that's still in there. I'd like to propose an amendment to that motion, if I can, please.
What would you like to?
I would like to amend
wording
that we actually remove that requirement so that councillors don't have to bother the mayor every time he wants to have a. Thank you, councillor.
Okay.
Just through the chair, can we just have a moment to get that up?
So while you're having a moment,
Yeah.
can I just speak to
Yes, you can.
to that? And the reason why I don't agree with this is it's sort of like making rules as we go. And I would like our views, which I think have been recorded by staff, to be considered by them before we actually start changing the what is already here, because we know we've fallen into that trap on many occasions.
Mm.
So.
And I agree with you there, councillor. I think that if we don't address it in the way we're attempting to address it, that it's going to go through and we've lost the opportunity. But I am happy to have staff input on that prior to doing that.
No, that's all right. I'm generally in support of what you're trying to achieve, because I do not want to be micromanaging every time somebody gets in the car and goes down the road. But we do need to have the ability to make a substantive decision about whether a councillor or councillors attend major conferences which have high levels of expenses, and that is the grey area that's tripping us up at the moment. So I'm anxious to make sure that we give ourselves that ability, but not micromanage everything that council is doing on a day-to-day basis. So, Martin, did you have something? And then Terry, please. We're talking to a proposed amendment that we don't have wording for yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so Martin,
I mean, on page 68, principles 2.3, the last bit of that says on council business. And then at the bottom of page 68 and the start of the next page, council business is fairly clearly spelt out there. There's like a paragraph about what that actually means. And I think there's enough in there that I don't see the need for Councillor Morrissey's amendment.
so Councillor Morrissey's amendment is to remove the requirement for approval for all of these events, and that's the bit that concerns me.
Yeah.
Terry.
Yeah, I've got a concern about this. I'm signing off these expenses and I often go back to Jenna and ask her about some mileage issues or times issues or travel times and things. So I need some clarity to do that job.
Mm,
And I can't go and do that job if it just rolls across my desk and think, well, I don't know, do I tick it off or not? So I need clarity, absolutely.
Thank you. That's a really good point, Terry. All right.
The amendment that we have is declines the proposed amendment to the definition of council business and the elected members' expenses resource policy and resource policy.
If we got the ability to chuck it on the screen.
Yep.
Gina, thank you.
1 second.
No worries. So we have a mover. Did we have a seconder? Councillor, was it Councillor Gottlieb?
If I can just, I actually, I get your concern regarding training courses and conferences and things. That's not what my target is. My target is local travel within the district for those small meetings we're going to. So is it possible, this is taking way too long, is it possible to actually just somehow separate out the biggies from what I call the small fish in this and just not need the approval for travel within the district? Is it possible to do something like that, Your Worship?
Good point.
I'm just trying to.
Possible just to leave it as it was, but put in a request that staff look at making some amendments and presenting them in the future, because otherwise my trip to Sydney next week might be a study on looking at some curbing issues over there that I could take the personal decision on under this amendment.
And that's not what I'm trying to do, John. I'm just trying to deal within the local stuff.
So, Aileen, did you want to clarify something on that? And then we'll come to
Yeah.
Delhi, please.
So I just wanted to be really clear about why we're trying to do this. And that's so that our admin staff, like Terry, there's an admin staff member and Terry having to look at these and go, is this in or is it out? And actually, it's a really hard decision at times because this is grey and the decision creates a whole lot of risk for the admin staff member that they might get it wrong, or for the elected member that they've signed off something that they shouldn't have signed off. So there's a whole lot of risk in here that's landing on people that need some clarity, hence why we're wanting to make a change to it. And as elected members, it's your call how you want to do this, but clarity is what we're seeking. So whatever it is that is proposed, can we have clarity? And can I just chuck a random thought in there too? Later on today, you're considering some potential KPIs. One of those, I think, Rika just started to talk to draw the link as well. That is a calendar. I think a calendar. You discussed a calendar of meetings, and they were allocated out, and that's kind of where that KPI is heading as well. So there might be an answer in there as well that could be helpful.
Delhi, please. Thanks, Aileen.
I think there's two things here, and I think we've discussed. I think we need to have a workshop or a discussion around whether councillors at the beginning of a financial year are allocated a sum of money and they choose which major meetings or events they attend. So there is a little bit of autonomy around, as I've stated before, I think the big conference is the best form of tautokauing John Morrissey, councillor self-development in a lot of respects, that it's very, very important PD. That's a piece of work I still think, we've deferred for over a year since we first talked about it. The other thing is, in my sympathy to staff and to our Deputy Mayor, is that the form doesn't actually allow you any room to put an explanation in. So, John, Rekha and I were both unavailable. Someone from our ward requested somebody come and have a look at safety issues on the road. John was invited in his capacity as a member of that roading organisation. A quick note about that in that space would have made it really, really easy for Terry to go, I see John Morrissey's over in Mercury Bay. What's he up to? Just to explain, not a story, not a novel, but just a little bit of context around why was he in Koaotunu on a weekday looking at footpaths. I don't know what you think about that, but I still want to have that discussion about which some councils do, which is an allocated sum of money. You look at what's coming up in the next 12 months, and if it costs a heap to go to the annual conference, that's the only one you go to with your allocated budget, and you don't go to any of the other ones.
And just to add to your comment, that was all very last minute, John. So getting approval and everything, it was so last minute. It was like, hey, I'm free tomorrow. Let's do this, and we weren't available. And yeah, thank you.
You still had time to issue the passport, though.
So, Councillor Morrissey, can I suggest that I get and support where you're going with this, but I'm hearing input from staff, thinking that there's more work to be done on this.
Yeah.
I might suggest that if you withdraw that, it might allow us to give them the tools that they need and to take a little bit more time to work through it.
I'm fast getting to that point, Your Worship, because that's not my intention to kill the whole dog. I just want to pick a couple of fleas off his back, and so yeah, So I'm happy to withdraw, but yeah.
Thank you for that.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And your second has left the room anyways. Okay, Ari, Jenny, you okay with that? We go back to what we were. In which case, I think, we had a mover and a seconder for the substantive motion with that in there. Who was the mover? I'm sorry. John Grant. Who was the seconder? Robin.
Can I just check though, because there was an amendment,
Mhm.
so but which we voted on, but we haven't voted on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So through the chair, we can go back to the substantive motion, which was the one that Councillor Grant put on the table, being the staff recommendation, and we can put that one to the vote.
So on the screen, that's items 1 to 3.
It is correct.
Is that
yeah.
with the word may change, must change to may?
So through the chair, that is the amendment.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the substantive motion, which is the one that Councillor Grant put up. So we're going to put that one to the vote, and that will be included as the full resolution.
Thank you. Everyone clear on that? Yeah. Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? No. Those against? Robin, thank you. Do you want that noted?
We've just done that.
We've covered
We
everything.
just included it all.
Yeah. So, and hopefully Terry will take it on board what you said, and hopefully between yourself and admin staff, it starts to head you in that direction of having the tools that you need. So I appreciate the work you're doing. It's quite labour intensive, which is why I don't want to do it. Thank you. All right, moving on, folks. Appreciate it. How are we going for time? Thank you, Donna. Item 2.5, capital expenditure projects carry forward. Page 75. Thank you, team. Okay. Right, so could I get a mover and a seconder, please, just to receive this report? Councillor Connell, seconder Councillor Walker. All those in favour just to receive? Thank you. Right, we will open this for discussion. Did councillors have any questions of the handsome Mr. Glenn McIntosh? I know. Yeah. Thank you, Mo. You've put me in a good mood with your earlier comments. Thank you. All right. So perhaps between Mo and Glenn, you can just give us a bit of an overview. And I know that there's been some questions from councillors just in the lead up to this. Maybe just some background on where we are, particularly with the TIF projects, and an update on, I know they're multi-year projects, just a bit of an update on that and anything else you think is appropriate. Thank you. Just your mic, please, Glenn. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, this just brings the budget from key capital projects that we weren't able to complete last year forward into this financial year. With respect to the TIF toilets, we are going to market by the end of this month. It'll be a month to go through that process. So we'll have the contractor awarded early November. Building consents and things like that will get sorted out over Christmas, and then hit the ground running with all of the toilets constructed by the end of June. And the Whangamata dump station, if anybody wants to know about that, should be done, will be done before Christmas. So that will run ahead of the toilets.
2025. Thank you. Councillor Walker, please.
Yeah, so I was concerned about the TIF funding because those were government funded money that had a time frame normally on them to get them done. Also, those toilets are sort of like, I thought they had a preferred supplier that sort of had the order and they would make them in set lots. They're all the same design to me. That should just be an order through the system, wouldn't it? Why do we have to wait for those to be ordered?
So through the chair, so we're going to, it'll be invited tender to two. So there's Permaloo and Exeloo. The two. So two contractors, yes. So it'll be a competitive bid, but it's only a month. So it's in terms of tendering and going to market, it's still a fairly quick turnaround time. Just the other complication, we have had just a bit of a transition in staff and have had to bring, so you'll all remember Lorenzo, who was acting in the role that Luke now has. So we've engaged Lorenzo directly now that he's back in wearing his consultant hat to drive the project and keep it going. So yeah, we've just had a handover between staff and probably lost just a couple of weeks there. But
so I just make your comment, you said they'll be finished by June next year.
Mm-hmm.
You think they'll be quicker than that if they can get the order out in a month?
So there's some building consents involved. Like Permaloo and Exeloo have relatively standard designs, but we're still bespoking. There's site constraints that are specific to each, and I don't think we're expecting them to build all 7 concurrently. There'll be a little bit of staggering with. We'll be done. I'm really confident we'll, especially with it in Lorenzo's hands, really confident it will be done by the end of the financial year. And knowing Lorenzo with a bit of lead time up his sleeve. So, Aileen.
So yesterday, Glenn explained to me how the package was rolling out. That seemed quite a good explanation around how we were rolling the package out such that there was a pipeline of work for the contractors. So we don't necessarily want them all at the same time, or we'll pay more for them. We want them sort of across the year to the point where the money basically is budgeted to. That was your explanation yesterday?
Yes. When I was talking to you, so I've just had a little bit more, I had assumed we were able to get more done before Christmas, but it does sound like just in terms of our getting building consent sign off and stuff following so that project needs to work through council's internal processes as well. And we can't do that until we've confirmed who the supplier. You can't put a building consent in for a house that you don't know who's building it yet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for pushing this forward, but some of these have been going 2 or 3 years. So
Yes,
we're really
yep.
keen to try and get these done so that people can see the benefits from them. So yeah, any haste would be appreciated.
I just say it'd be a year, no more, because we only signed the funding agreement 12 months ago. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Terry. I think you've made it clear that your community is pushing you hard from the back, and I've seen that. But I think we also got to have trust and faith in Glenn and Mo and Lorenzo and the team that they're going to do this as fast as they possibly can. So thank you. Deli, please.
Thanks, guys. And yeah, I do have faith and trust and hope and all of those good things. There's some pretty large sums around roading, water, parks and open spaces. What is the risk, because these projects have been essentially deferred, I won't say delayed, but deferred, is there a risk that the contracts, once they're tendered, will come back higher than what we're anticipating?
Just pull that close, Mo, if you don't mind. I'll bring it forward.
Yep. Everyone can hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, with the roading contracts here, there is an element of risk because of market movement. With time, obviously material prices change. But across the industry, and I found this when you're doing the estimates for the Whitianga RTS, that some construction costs have actually come down. And the reason for that is there's more material movement now in the market. So fingers crossed, I would say. That's all I can say at this point in time.
Thank you. Thank you, Deli. Councillors, any other questions? I'm going to throw one in there, and I wonder if around Thames South Water we can get a bit of an update on the temperature with Taumata Arawai. Are we seeing any movement in that, or is it a little bit? Is that something that we need to just stay away from at the moment?
Yep, and that would be my response. That we could give you a lot of detail at this point in time, but given in the interest of time, the short answer is at the moment we're making no regrets investment, and it's 12 months until we need to make any investment that might go to take a different path. And within that period of time, Taumata Arawai are going to be undertaking a process with, we don't know where that process will end up. So within 12 months, we'll know where they've got to, and we'll be able to make calls as to which path this project might take. In the meantime, everything we're doing is no regrets.
No regrets investments, and some of that's well advanced, isn't it? So thank you. Sorry, Mo and then Terry, please.
Yep, thanks, Eileen. If I can please make a comment. In relation to Taumata Arawai, the important thing for us is compliance with the legislative side, because although a lot of verbal discussions have taken place, none of them have actually translated into any form of legislation or mandate. So if we get audited at this point in time, in terms of what we are doing for compliance, we are compliant because we're following the rules. And I think that's the position we need to take. I would advise council.
Thank you. And I'm just aware that, and Aileen's, I think, explained that very well, that this council at a governance level does not want to be investing $19 million if we don't need to. So we're just keen to look at what options might be available to us, and I know that you're exploring that, but we're mindful that if there are other options, we want to be exploring them. So thank you. Billy, please.
Yeah, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, hi. So my question's around the Pawanui wastewater treatment plant odour control. Now, it was a big number we started off with. Is it because they purchased the gear last year and it's only the installation?
Actually, councillors, when we presented the report last year for council approval, staff inadvertently left out the funding split across 2 financial years. And so this is to make that correction. That's it. And the good news is today I signed off the construction contract award.
Okay,
So
that's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Did I have Delhi and then Rekha or the other way around? Delhi, please.
Thanks for the explanation, Mo, and I totally understand the regulations that we have to operate within, but I just want to talk of what Len has said about pushing the envelope. If there is an opportunity at some point to discuss an alternative to the 19 million, I would hope it comes to this room before any final decisions are made, because I don't want there to be regrets. This is an awful lot of public money. The other thing is, and I just want to flag at the back of my mind, is to support, and Glenn mentioned, you know, the changing of the garden, Lorenzo in and Lorenzo out, and Luke being on board, which is fantastic. I wonder whether or not there's a discussion to be had at some point about an infrastructure committee, which is something that the council used to have. And given the amount of work and some gnarly projects and discussions that we need to be having, I wonder if the reinstatement, I know capability, capacity, cost, whether that is something very important and maybe something else has to go.
Thank you, Nellie. Rekha, please.
Yeah, that was actually one of the points that I was going to make around infrastructure committee. I mean, we've got $2 billion worth of assets and it seems a no-brainer. But I wanted to ask a specific question about a wastewater project, if I may. Just if you can refresh my memory, and this is around the Stormont Lane wastewater project, which I understand at our last community board, that project was finished and came in under budget.
that is correct. The project did come in under budget.
But I see there's a line item here for some further work there. Now,
That's also correct. The reason for that is there's insufficient flow in the pipe to, shall I say, push things along. And that's generating some odor issues. So until the pipes get full flow, we need to put in some carbon filters.
Okay.
The broken pipes fixed.
So some of these projects that we're seeing here are new and some of them are projects that we've seen before. I'm just trying to understand. I don't think I've seen this, the one that you're just talking about, the odor project.
Sorry. It is the same project. The line was commissioned, but it's generating some odors due to lack of flow. So we need to stick a few carbon filters on that pipe to manage the odor.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a separate project. I mean, if we had that benefit of time, let's say this project finished in May or February or May in a different year, then we would have had time until June to actually test it, whereas this finished almost at the end of the financial year. So we didn't have a chance to really check the line out.
Okay. And so these the additional costs will probably bring that project into just finishing on budget.
There will still be a surplus.
Okay. Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, go ahead.
We heard one of them had a government requirement of legislation. Are there any others there that relate to government funding? Anything there that relates to government funding or legislation or anything that could throw us off the rails?
If you could please clarify, Councillor Gottlieb, I'm not.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think you mentioned one there with the Thames, which you're waiting on some legislation. Are there any others like that, or any others that require government input?
I'm not aware of any at this stage, other than Thames. Thanks.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. If I may just add one more comment in relation to Thames. So the instruction I have given staff is to progress with the design, but not to award any construction contracts. So we keep our options open in terms of what we do there.
Thank you. And one last question, please. Just a clarification on Waiuna Bay. Which site is that? Is that the end of the cul-de-sac or is that the car park?
Let Ed answer that question. Ed's online.
Thank you. Ed, can you help us out?
Yes, through the chair, that would be the car park.
Okay, so that's that SMP project that we talked about earlier, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Is that other end is where the road was dropping away underneath the turnaround at the end? Is that stable or has that got worse? Or do you know what the latest is on that?
That has got a little bit worse through recent storms, but it's still nothing that we can't deal with. So we have funding for that.
Thank you. Councillors, John Morrissey, thank you.
Yeah, you.
Blind in that eye, I tell you.
Look, two things. This is not what I want to speak about, but I'll just make a comment regarding infrastructure committees and policy and planning committees and whatever else. I've worked under that regime. And Terry would be the only other councillor here that probably has as well. They were all fine, but I sleep so much better now, especially now that we've got our project management and contracts being looked at a lot more closer by the CEO. I feel so much better those going to risk and assurance where there's a full council, not just a few members sitting on an infrastructure committee, but a full council and everybody being aware of what the status really is. So yeah, I was a big fan of subcommittees, but I like risk and assurance big time now. Now, the other thing is I just want to back you up on what you said, Len, about Thames South, the water down there. We're looking at big dollars down there and I'm really keen to explore whatever options there are. And one of the reasons I'm actually really keen to explore that is if we say talking $19–20 million down there, substantial amount of money, that could be the money that tips the cart, so to speak, as to whether or not we're in a position to go it alone or whether we're going to take on so much debt and have so much work to do that we're forced into bed with others outside the district. So if there's a saving to be had down there that helps us keep our debt down internally and makes possibly the option of going ourselves a little bit better, I'm all for that. So yeah, it's worth considering though.
Thank you, Councillor. Sure, go ahead.
Just respond to that. Just be really clear that there are no options. We're doing what we're doing because we've been told to by Taumata Arawai following that crypto spreading. However, Taumata Arawai have some directions from government and will be moving into a process in the coming months that is uncertain as to where that might land. And that's the thing we're keeping an eye on. And as I said, it's no regrets investment for the next 12 months. So it gives it time to play out.
Yeah, totally get that. I mean, I know we're doing what we're doing because we have to do it, but it could be that conversations might open up another path for us.
So we have time. That's the message I'm hearing. We have time.
Can I just finish with one comment?
Yeah, it's Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, just quickly on John's comment about infrastructure committee, I support those 100% because infrastructure is quite a detailed business. You know, there's a whole lot of stuff around waste, around water, around stormwater that we don't really understand. But sitting around the committee and talking about it really gave us an understanding that we could bring to the meeting, to the councillors, and talk about it clearly about what we were trying to do. And obviously visiting the plants and seeing those things in real life was a really important thing. So I support an infrastructure committee because that's the big number that council should look after. It's the one that really matters. The smaller stuff should stay with the local boards, but that's the big number. The other one is, I'm just looking at this number here, 66 million for next year. And how much confidence have we got to achieve that?
So through the chair, the responsibility for that sits with me, and I'm looking at Luke, who has assured me that. So he's got a really intensive planning process over the next month, 6 weeks, and part of that is going to be both allocating internally, but also securing external resource to deliver those projects that we don't have internal capacity for. So right now I would say pretty comfortable that we're going to get to the 85% mark, and Luke gets a halo on his head if we get to 100.
No pressure. Councillors, thank you. let's keep moving. So what we've got to do now is part 2 of this resolution, which approves the CapEx and delegates the chief executive. So parts 2 and 3 delegates chief executive to approve minor changes. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Delhi, seconder, Councillor Grant, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. What I'm going to suggest is we've got a number of small procedural items that I'd like to try and tick off before lunch. We've got just under 20 minutes to do it. So items 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. Let's rip straight into those. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Mo. So sublease proposal, do we have anyone to talk directly to this?
Through the chair, Dean.
Dean? Where is he? There he is. Welcome, Dean.
Morning. Oh, it's actually afternoon.
Yeah. Now, I don't think we met, Nicole. Have we met? And if we have, I apologise most sincerely. She might have, I haven't. Could you turn on your mic, please? Thank you. All right.
So just through the chair, we'll take this report as read. I will just briefly highlight that this proposal is only a part of the ongoing discussions with the Treasury. There are a number of other options that are being explored that we're looking to come back to this council on, but this is one that they're seeking to give them a chance to trial a relationship with Thames School of Mines over the next period to see how that works for them. So the report is about that ability to sublease, less so about the wider position of the Treasury. But happy to take any questions around that.
Thanks, Dean. So just to clarify, the decision today is just to affirm the sublease agreement that's pretty much already underway, isn't it? So, and if we keep the discussion to that today without going into wider things, then that'll help us just to move through. We've got Delhi and then Martin, please, and then Gary.
Understand that we're trying not to delve into that bigger piece of work, which is taking a bit of staff time and money. But we must be aware of what the quantum of the lease will do and how that will help the archive's financial position.
Yep, good question. I think the purpose of sharing the site with the Thames School of Mines is to enable the doors to be open again. So at the moment, the position of the Treasury is that they have closed down everything apart from keeping the archive going in the other building. So the doors of the Carnegie Library and everything within that have been closed. So this is more about being able to get that side of the operation open again. But yeah, that's not going to provide a long-term solution. But there are going to be discussions with Heritage New Zealand, which is the Thames School of Mines, the Treasury and Council. Very shortly, we're just looking to get that all arranged.
I just want to understand how that enables the doors to be open. Does that enable them to pay a staff member, or does that mean they can share School of Mines staff? So if there's one reception desk, if you like, there's one person at a time personing that position.
Yeah, pretty much. That's my understanding. I haven't seen the heads of agreement between the parties at this point. But that's the arrangement.
Got Martin and then Gary, please.
Yes, I just wanted to add on behalf of the Thames Community Board, this sublease has the support of the Thames Community Board, and the reason that we were bringing it forward this way is purely to enable the School of Mines and the Heritage Group to be basically getting things done sooner rather than later. And the disadvantage that's mentioned in option 1 is a disadvantage that exists really for a whole lot of trust owned assets like this. So I would like to move that we adopt option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Rodley, and Gary and then John, please.
So if I just get it right, if we look at page 89 with attachment B, we are talking about the Carnegie Library building.
Right.
But that being so, I flashed through my mind, we have a future to look at for this building and whether we need other areas for the council. Because I remember seeing the photograph and it looked an amazing building. And if we commit ourselves for too long, we might be in a year or so wanting to use that ourselves. That's just what I raised. Just passing.
Thanks, Gary. It's not actually that big inside. It's an amazing historic building, but there's not a lot of room inside the building. So, John, please.
Okay, I'd just like to clarify with Councillor Rodley, if I can. You've moved that motion. Can I just clarify? It comes with the full support of the Thames Community Board. Okay. Well, I would like to second that motion then.
Gary, do you mind turning your mic on so that we don't end up with an overload with too many? Okay, so we've got a mover, we've got a seconder. Any further discussion, or we just Delhi, please?
I really support the work that both of these organisations do, but and I will support this motion, but I just want to register the fact that I'm a bit uncomfortable that I haven't seen the MOU or more detail around how that's going to look and how it's going to work.
Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Abstain? Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. All right. Item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Dean. Item 2.7, Animal Dog Control Report, page 90.
Good afternoon,
Hello.
councillors and Mayor. Look, I'm happy to take the report as read. This is a annual report that we bring every year, which is reasonably the same, but I do have some highlights that I'm happy to bring to your attention. So over the 23-24 year, we had more dogs registered than we ever had. So there's 140 more registered, and we're on track again with this registration period. We did over 1,000 more proactive patrols in the dog control space, and that was largely due to our Lead the Way campaign, which was a 6-week campaign. And that,
Thank you, Alice. Camel, anything to add?
No, not at this stage.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions? Delhi.
Yeah, love the campaign, and I love the objectives and the proactive messaging around dogs. And I don't know if this is subject to legal proceedings, and I'm looking over at Brian, but there's been a bit of media coverage. Sorry, only one coffee around that attack in Tairua, and please let me know if that's something that needs to be taken offline. But would really like a little bit more information about where that's at.
I might get some guidance from Aileen as to whether that should be taken offline.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide a briefing at lunch, given it's an open case. I think we'll not to run in the public.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did we, oh, Terry,
Yeah.
please.
Yes, mine's a similar thing. I've had a 20-minute phone call from somebody that needs to come offline and be discussed as well. So yeah, it's an issue there.
Yeah, please go ahead, Aileen.
So these dog reports are common across all councils around the country. They report the same statistics through to the government at the same time of the year. So encourage you all to go and have a look at other councils, and I think you'll conclude that our council does a pretty good job, and this is one of the activities that we do really, really well.
Thank you. Rika, please.
Thanks, Alice. Yeah, just wanted to say really good report, very easy to read, and I'm happy to move option 1. Thank you.
Move a second. Gary, did you?
I was just curious, have you had any dogs put down?
Yes, there have been dogs euthanised throughout the year, and that is generally due to them being surrendered by owners or that they've been impounded for the certain amount of time. Yeah, following the procedures that we need.
And the owners have given up on them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Generally, yes.
Thank you. We'll put the motion. We've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. It's great. Appreciate that, Pete. Last item. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Tamil. 2.8 Animal Nuisance Bylaw Review. There's a lot of stuff in here about bees. Can't survive without bees. Kath? Nat? We got Kath and
Tēnā koutou katoa. Emma is not sitting in front of you. You might have noticed she's popped here behind us. If I can just introduce Natalie Street. Natalie works with Emma and has been doing a lot of the grunt work behind this report. They have been helping us out with this workload after the L word and very appreciative of the expertise they can bring in the bylaw field. So I'm just going to hand over to Natalie to give you a brief overview of this work.
Kia ora and welcome, Natalie. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Kath. So yes, I'm from GMD Consultants and supporting the review of the Animal Nuisance Bylaw, which was made in 2019. You have a report in front of you, which is requesting you to review the bylaw and to make some minor changes. This is the 5-year review, which is a statutory requirement under the Local Government Act. And if the bylaw is not reviewed at this time, it will expire in 2 years. So this bylaw addresses issues primarily, as you said, with the keeping of bees, pigs, and poultry to ensure they don't create a nuisance or public health risk. Staff have taken a pragmatic approach to the review at this time. There are no proposed changes to the actual substance of the bylaw or any rights or obligations of any person to whom the bylaw applies. Staff are proposing only minor changes to ensure the bylaw has accurate and current information. The significance is assessed as low, and we have also sought legal advice from the team at Brookfields. Brookfields have advised that it is possible under Section 156 of the Local Government Act to make these minor changes by resolution of council, publicly notified and without going through a public consultation process. Brookfields have also reviewed this report and the recommendations to the council. And the report therefore recommends council review the bylaw to complete its statutory obligations and recommends the council resolve to make the recommended minor changes and communicate this to the public via public notice. Do you have any questions for me?
Councillors, any questions?
Just one, if I may.
Terry?
So these rules apply to urban only areas, or is it rural as well?
The bylaw applies to the whole district.
Across the whole district. So registering of beehives in a rural area, do they still have to go through the same process as in urban?
Registration is a national requirement under the Biosecurity Act.
Right. And the numbers of beehives allowed to hold, is it changed or is it the same?
That's staying the same as the previous bylaw,
Okay,
as the current bylaw.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There being none, thank you. We'll get a mover and a seconder. Councillor Gary Percival, a seconder. Councillor Grant, all those in favour? Those against? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, Kath. Thank you, Natalie. And I think we will draw a line under that for now and break for lunch. We'll come back at 1 o'clock.